Welcome to Wired In. This month, we're continuing our discussion about lighting. Another part of financing a project or another part of paying for a project that there's a lot of confusion around and is incentives and rebates. First of all, is there a difference between a rebate and an incentive?
Yes, a rebate would be if you bought manufacturer X's lights and they gave a $2 rebate. It's like a coupon.
Okay.
They give you that's a rebate. The utilities provide incentives.
Okay.
An incentive for you to do an energy retrofit project so that they can use less energy and not have to build another power plant. So that's why they call it an incentive, not a rebate.
And now an incentive could be for small business, for large business. It goes the gamut, correct?
It doesn't matter. It could be for HVAC, could be for lighting, could be for solar, could be for window film. It all depends. And all the utilities do different things around the country. Some do them easier than others. Some are more difficult to do.
Now, with an incentive program, there's almost always a limited amount of approved vendors that can be a part of it, right? Or does it depend from
Typically, the utilities have a list of approved incentive providers.
Okay.
Now, the other caveat to that is, for example, on lighting, they typically have to have material that's DLC certified or Energy Star.
Okay.
So you can't use just some lighting you found somewhere that doesn't meet any kind of codes. So it's like appliances that meet Energy Star.
Okay.
You're not going to get appliance rebates unless it meets Energy Star. So there are some caveats to that.
Are there a lot of hoops to jump through with some of those? Just like, I mean, it seems like you do, your taxes every time you try and get a rebate back, and then they catch you, on one little thing. Is it that kind of thing?
It's it's an art, and we're lucky that we have folks that do that for a living. They take care of our rebates for us nationally throughout the country. Our local utility is very difficult, not difficult, but they watch out for their rate holders and the stakeholders of their company. So if you're going to do a lighting job, you have to do a pre-inspection, which means they want to see what you're putting in, they want to see what you're taking out, they want to verify those things match, because there have been people that have done some fraud in some of those things. Some companies won't allow you to take a 4-foot lamp, LED lamp, and use it in a fixture because they think that as soon as you leave, they're going to take that out and put the other one back in.
Right.
And they want long-term energy savings.
This isn't something that I can do a project and then go back and look for the rebate.
No.
Generally speaking, or incentive. This is something that has to be planned for from the onset.
Absolutely, pre and post. And there's actually some, for example, there's some schools that we work on as well, that when they take out the old material and put it in, we can actually get them or new construction, we can get them incentives for new construction by putting in a more efficient lighting, LED lighting. So there's lots of different programs out there. They vary from the East Coast to the West Coast, but you always want to look and see if there's an energy incentive that you can utilize, because there typically is.
What's the best way to know if there's an energy incentive, or whether my project and my needs qualify?
Deal with a reputable company. We'll come in and do an audit.
Okay.
A good audit of your facility, and they will give you something in paper that says, we believe this is an anticipated incentive that's available to you for this.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't mean they always get that dollars amount, because once you do the pre-inspection, it could be different.
Okay.
For example, again, our utility says if you're going to do a pre-inspection and more than 10% of the lighting is not operating, you can't get a rebate for that.
Gotcha.
Or, I'm sorry, an incentive. You can't get an incentive for that. Yeah, you might get a rebate from somebody, but you won't get an incentive.
So rebates tend to be through manufacturers.
Typically, yes.
Okay.
Buy this lamp, get this much off.
It's a coupon.
There are some that there's tend to be a rebate with maybe residential.
Okay.
So I know in some parts of the country, if you buy 5 of these lamps, we'll give you $10 back.
Gotcha.
Or the utility basically offset the cost of you going to an energy saving lamp. Typically that's in where the high rate areas are, because they really want to try to get the residential people to do that. Business people are pretty savvy about it, or schools. I mean, they pretty much know what they're looking at today as they do a conversion to LED.
Now, with incentive too, it's not just the cost of the lamps or the cost of the fixtures, because sometimes that's almost incidental, right? It's the cost of the whole project.
Absolutely.
And so incentive also could be used for labor and for the cost of the project, right?
Absolutely, it's the total project.
Okay.
But there's so many dollars per kWh that they're going to give you based on what your lighting is.
Okay.
And that helps offset your program. You can offset that as the cost of that project, or you can take that as an additional incentive on your energy savings and do something else with it.
So if I'm talking to a company and they're talking about incentives to me or something around these
You mean a
kinds
client?
a client.
Okay.
I'm talking to a provider. I'm talking to FSG. I'm talking to somebody, or I'm talking to someone like FSG. How do I know that I'm not getting shortchanged, or how do I trust what's going on with them? Because I've heard people say things like, there was a rebate or an incentive on this product. I never got it as the customer. It just went to the bottom line of the person who I never saw it. I didn't know that was there. So how do I know I'm dealing with a reputable company that has my best interests at heart?
Well, I mean, I think that's like anything. The buyer has to do a little bit of investigation to find out they're dealing with a reputable company.
Right.
Again, we talked today about lighting. So a 10-year warranty on a lighting fixture from a company that's been in business 2 years, what's that worth? It's the same thing. If you've not, I always say this, if you haven't heard of them, you probably buyer beware.
Okay.
You want to deal with a reputable company that's been around a long time because they have a brand to protect, they have a name to protect, and they have a reputation. And a lot of times you can ask your utility because they have a list of approved providers.
Okay.
And they typically aren't going to have somebody on that list that has been proven to not be reputable.
Okay. So I'm a facility manager, and my inbox is full every day of people saying, "Hey, I can get you a deal. Hey,
Sure.
Free everything. Hey, I can get you a deal." How do I cut through the noise? How do I get to where the real savings are, and how do I know if what's coming is? I mean, what are some of the ways to kind of vet that in my head or in my inbox?
Well, I think a lot of facility managers that we do business with, both in the industrial side, there's a couple of different organizations they belong to. There is a camaraderie with those people, and they tend to call people that they know.
Okay.
So most of them don't fly off and do some email and say, "Hey, let me save this lighting package." It typically doesn't work that way. Typically, they know people, and they get recommendations from other people that say, "Call these guys, have them come and look at it." And they may get 2 or 3 different prices from 2 or 3 reputable companies and then decide from that.
Well, that brings up a really, really good point, and it's one of the other things we're going to talk about, and that is associations, buying programs, and communication amongst my peers.
Sure.
So, what kind of groups? I know you're involved in BOMA and some other things like that. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Well, there's BOMA, there's IFMA, there's IRM. There's a number of organizations for facility managers or property owners or property managers. And yes, those people tend to know people that know people. I guess that's the easiest way I can say that. And
It sounds like high school.
It does. It's kind of funny. Hey, I know people. But the other part of that is they're going to say, "Hey, you did a job like this, Joe. Who did you use?
Right.
What was your experience with them?" Because I'll tell you what, if you do a crummy job, word gets around fast. And people tend to shy away from those. Consequently, if you do a much better job, people have a tendency to tell other people about you.